This painting turned out really nice. This last one he did.
I'd spent about 45 to 50 minutes on it, and I want to explain to you what I did to it so that you understand. But I'll let Marilee finish up what she
I
was
think,
saying.
no, I think I'm done.
Okay.
So later on, we're trying to improve everything. So later on, I'm gonna send out a questionnaire to you guys on what you see. We're so close to this reference packet that maybe we don't see something like maybe the type's too small or um, I don't know. And so I'm gonna send a questionnaire out that you guys could help us on.
Yeah.
All right, I'm done. I'm getting my bacon.
Okay. I just wanted to explain a couple things what I did afterwards. Um, the first thing that I did look at is I looked at this area here. I darkened it up and I also gave it a little bit more of a reddish glow in here. Some of the trees, when I was darkening it up, they kind of fell back, which was nice. I didn't want these too prevalent back here. And I relifted out the birch trees, but I didn't want the birch trees to be too light because they stick out a lot in the photograph, which is kind of too much contrast. The other thing that I handled was the bank here, and I started adding a little bit of more gouache in here and up in here. And then I added some gouache of fallen leaves into the river to break that up. And I lifted a little bit of the bank here. But other than that, I didn't do a whole lot to this, but it was a matter of adding a little bit here, looking at it, and then deciding what I want to do. I gave this a little bit more form underneath here, but it's those final tweaks that bring the painting to life as opposed to the finished demo. And sometimes I have to admit, we do run out of time. And that's why I like to go back into something like this to show you how I finished it. But it came out where I was very happy with it. And Marilee bought it. I take a check from her when I'm done. So, anyways, that's where it ended up. Okay, today we have a winter scene that's a little bit more complicated in drawing the barn itself to get the right angles going on this because the eye level line on this is just below this line here, which would mean the eye level line would be a horizontal line. Everything up above that will angle up and go down to the vanishing point that's off the page over here. I did simplify a few things, not a lot, but most of this will be done with the brush. Okay, we're using ultramarine.
I have a question though, Dale.
Yes, go ahead.
In drawing this, now that you say that with the vanishing point and everything, I can
Yes.
see it a little bit better. But I mean, is it any big deal that my drawing is like a square box just sitting straight in the middle?
Um,
Doesn't
well,
have the nice.
to have the angles going down makes it a little bit more dramatic. Uh, if you have these more horizontal to the border of the paper, you're taking away some of that dramatic look, which um, becomes more one point perspective than two because we have angles that go down this way and angles that go down this way. This is more severe on this side than it is on the front side. Um, but to understand the perspective of this, it's a matter of having a photograph up and putting your pencil or your brush on it to find each angle. So as this goes up, these have a tendency of slanting more down as opposed to when they get down towards the eye level line, they have a tendency of flattening out a little bit more. So this is flatter here than it is up here. This is much more of an angle. And as it comes down, a little bit less of an angle as it comes down to here. But it's something that is very important to drawing as time goes on. Okay, any questions? All right. So we're using ultramarine blue, manganese blue, raw sienna, burnt sienna, and brown madder. And I'm going to work this dry pigment on wet paper today. And I'm going to take the little bit of the ultramarine blue and some of the manganese blue. I don't want this too warm in the sky. It's really kind of a nice, cool looking sky. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put this in very carefully. And I'm going to go right across the top of the barn here. And usually what happens, I'm going to add a little bit more ultramarine blue to the pigment and some more manganese, is I'm going to make this a little bit darker up here. The sky is always darker in value on a clear day than it is at the bottom, because we start to get lighter at the curvature of the earth, like so. And I'm going to add a little bit of raw sienna in with that mixture. Usually as this goes from here to here, it gets lighter in value and it gets grayer as it recedes back towards the horizon line. So I'm adding a little bit of raw sienna down towards the bottom. And as I think Sydney had said that, mentioned that as we can see a far distance, actually the yellow disappears it doesn't show up through the aerial perspective. So I am going to take that color that's on the roof and I'm going to add a little bit of raw sienna to this mixture, because it's kind of a grayed down yellow. And I'm just going to add a little bit up here, and I'm going to add a little bit of the manganese blue to it till I get over to this corner over here. And I'm going to very lightly tint that in so that this part of the roof will be much lighter. Then I'm going to go to the raw sienna into the body of the building a little bit. So we're trying to encompass the whole painting. And I'm going to go right into the shadow side of the barn using a little bit more manganese because it's in shadow and it's cool. Now I'm not worried about these white specks up here. I'll probably just leave them and go right down into the barn. I'm going to go to a smaller brush here at this point. So we're trying to get the coolness of the whole scene, and the barn body of the barn is very warm. So I'm going to take the raw sienna here and the little bit of the brown matter, and I'm going to go right down towards the bottom here with all these weeds and so forth that are back here, and just block them in, a little bit of burnt sienna in with it. Then pure raw sienna up in here. And then now I have to pay attention to, I'm going to do the fence posts here so I can relate back to that. They're going to go darker. But I have to go back and pay a little bit of attention to the dead grasses poking themselves up through the snow. So we got a little bit in here, a little bit in there. And I'm going to use a little bit of burnt sienna for some of the stuff that's closer. And then we have some that goes right across this line up here. But you want to get that warm feeling against the cool. And I'm going to take even a smaller brush here so I can pinpoint certain things. And I'm going to dry brush it in, so I don't have to work in tiny areas. And a little bit of burnt sienna and a touch of the ultramarine blue, which will slightly grade as it goes into the shadow up here. And we kind of go uphill. So I'm painting in the direction of the movement. And then I'm going to put in these small patches of grass here, We should have bare ground up here by the time the weekend comes around. Our snow is melting at a quick pace.
Yeah, I see it's been really warm up there.
Yeah, we're supposed to hit 49, 50 degrees this morning for today.
Us too.
And this
We're in
is,
Chicago and we're supposed to get 58.
ooh, this is the first year that I can ever remember that we did not have the snowmobile trails open, and which is really hurting the tourist season up here. And I'm going to block in this building a little bit warmer back here, like so for right now. Not worried about the trees. That's about where I want to leave this. The only thing that I'm going to do is, if you notice the trees that are on the right-hand side of the painting, as they go up and out, they are lighter. So I'm going to see if I can lift this. I will tell you that they do have a sale on indigo paper, $29 and some odd cents for a bundle of 3 sheets of paper at Amazon.
It's not a sale, what's the normal price?
Oh, that's their normal price, excuse me.
I'll put the link in the reference pack.
We'll put the link in the reference packet for you. We went to Cheap Joe's and they were out of a number of things, but they wanted $42
And $77.
and $77 in shipping because of the size of the package.
Oh.
And I'm going, really? We don't recall them doing that before, but so I'm lifting this out as a final thing so I don't lose the trees up in this area here. All the other ones are fairly dark. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the brown matter, mix it right in with this and some ultramarine blue and some burnt sienna. And I'm going to take the toothbrush and I'm going to spatter just a little bit of extra color of darkness into this area right in here. And I don't worry about it going anywhere else. And then I'll take the small brush, which is the last thing I'm going to do, and manipulate that. So
It was just ultramarine and
and
brown matter.
burnt sienna and brown matter. So I'm just manipulating that because this gives a random pattern that usually we can't do for some strange reason. We don't like to be as random as we think we like to be. And I'm going to add a little bit here. And then I'm going to simply stop. So now it has the basic illusion of what the photograph was showing. A very cool sky, a little bit of a warm body, which I'll add more to the barn here, cool here, and then all this warm color that comes in and around. And I'll worry about the cast shadows out here because I didn't want to have this mix with the blue. So I did the ultramarine blue up in the sky, mixed with a little bit of the manganese, lightened as it came down. As it came down towards the horizon line, I added a little bit of raw sienna to that. So to warm it up a slight bit, but it also grayed things down. And then I came into the body of the building. I have a little bit of raw sienna and blue up here, very light, because it's going to have more blue over here. But then I added more raw sienna to the body of the building here. The manganese and the ultramarine blue on the shadow side, raw sienna through this area here, allowing it to kind of just travel across the page. And then I blocked in the fence post with the raw sienna because those are going to go darker. And then started with the dry brushing of the reeds itself, the weeds that were left over.
Did you wet your paper before you started? I missed
No.
that part.
I was working wet on dry paper.
Okay.
That way it gave me better control. There's things that I always try to make the student understand is that you never attack every painting the same way. There's several ways you can do each painting, but this one is wet pigment on dry paper so that I can control the edges a little bit better and maintain the integrity of the barn especially. And if you work fast enough, you should be able to get all of this in down here very quickly. I could have started off with the barn and worked out is another option, but I thought I better not attempt that because I need a little bit more time to do it. Janet, are you there? Because you're all blacked out.
Yep, I'm in Florida.
Oh, okay. It's dark down there?
Yeah, we're having an eclipse.
I see. It's funny. Elsie's not having.
No, remember I got a funny situation with my
Oh, okay.
computer and monitor, and
All right.
life's good.
I understand.
Thank you for checking.
Just want to make sure you're breathing.
And smiling.
Yep, of course, always.
Yeah, I'll lift up my computer when it's time to show where I'm at,
All right.
so you can see it.
When we get there. But just remember, when working large to small, it's the same thing with the brushes. You're working from large brush to smaller brushes. So I was working a little, all large brush up to here, medium brush in here, and small brush out there.
And did you paint that little fence over there on the left?
Yeah, I blocked that in with raw sienna because it's going to go darker anyways. I thought I would just make it attach and connect to all these other parts down here, and I'll divide and conquer later.
All right, I'm gonna show you what I got.
All right. All right, good. That's where you're supposed to be. The sky should be a little bit bluer, but hold off on, don't do it now because I'm going to go back into the sky even in this next phase.
All
Because I
right.
wanted a little bit more icy blue looking. And if anybody loves bacon, this is thick cut bacon, which is wonderful. Mm.
I love bacon.
Oh, yeah.
It's all real wood smoke.
Yeah, it's all wood smoked. It's really good bacon.
Is bacon bad for you? I don't know.
Not on keto diet.
Not on the keto diet. That's what we're on.
Oh, okay.
And the grease from the bacon helps your joints.
Oh,
Like
wow.
Tin Man. Now up in the sky, I was using a fair amount of water so I could get this to look more fluid up here. So I didn't have any stop and start marks up in the sky. And if you use too much water, it's better than using not enough water in this particular case.
Did you take a picture?
Mm-hmm.
Gail, question.
Yeah,
So, on the right-hand side of the barn, what, no, of the barn,
out
in the
here.
barn. The barn,
Yeah,
yes, okay, that part that goes up to a peak.
yeah, the shadow side of the barn.
Yeah, what,
I use the manganese blue predominantly.
okay,
That's our coolest blue that we have on our palette. Or if you're using the cerulean blue, that's the coolest blue.
okay,
I switched probably about 10, 12 years ago to manganese. Uh, I I prefer it. It works better with other colors, but every artist you talk to, you're going to get a different opinion. It's a personal preference, is what it comes down to. And they were out of a lot of core paint at Cheap Joe's. So I had to go to Windsor Newton on one and Journey on another at Cheap Joe's because I was running out of stuff quickly here. But looking forward to my shipment.
Okay.
All right, let's see what you have, Elsie. Okay, good. See if you could spray a little bit of water on this, that it looks like it's more sporadic. You have this pretty much in a line right here. Allow it to come out into here, and the same thing over here. Because these are just grass lumps sticking out of the snow. Try to make it look a little bit more random and less planted in a straight row. But we do want that sky a little bit on the icy blue side when we get done, which that's what I'm going to uh, work on next, and then come down to the foreground.
So I have a quest. Okay, wait, never mind. I see it now. I don't have a question. Thank you.
You're welcome. Glad I could answer it for you quickly.
I'm ready.
All right, let's see what you have. Okay, when this area dries here, Sydney,
Yeah.
spray a little bit of water on it with your toothbrush and pick it up. It's a little bit too
Okay.
dark
Okay.
when it's dry. When it's dry, though, it will show a little bit more character to it and texture.
Okay.
How you doing, Ivy? You have to unmute yourself. Otherwise, you look like the mime.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a little more blobby than yours is.
All right, that's fine. No, you're in the right place because I'm going to be adding more and subtracting more so that we get that texture we're looking for.
Yeah, Dale, there's a building. Is there a building over there? I didn't see that.
There's a small building right back here.
Oh,
In the photograph, it's barely tucking out, so I pulled it out a little bit more. It's a second or tertiary interest, nothing of any importance. It's just gives it a little bit more depth up there by showing
Yeah.
the smaller building. That's the only reason I put it in. Nothing of any real importance. In fact, you could actually do without it. That was just a judgment call on my part.
put it in there.
How you doing, Judy?
Well, excuse me, I'm getting there.
All right. Don't overwork it.
Okay.
It's always best to start off simple, no matter what you're doing. That's why we start from big areas to small areas and working things from light to dark and from background to foreground. How you doing, Janet?
I'm working on the fence. I mean, if you want to move forward, you can. I'll be done in a few minutes.
Okay, the fence is just done very quickly with the raw sienna.
Yep. And lightly.
And lightly. I'll wait a few minutes. If anybody else has any questions on what they're doing, please call out.
What do you think of the brand Fluid watercolor? Amazon's got that too.
What is it called?
Fluid 100 watercolor paper, 100% cotton.
I've never used it, so I'm not aware of it.
Okay. They have, different. I have a little one that I bought. I haven't tried it yet.
Yeah.
Show it to you. Ah, here it's. Just to try it out.
Yeah.
Is that?
Nope, I've not seen it. I haven't looked on their website for that. I did.
It's 300 pound and it's all cotton.
Okay.
I
So
saw
I'll give
that
it a try.
too.
Tell me.
Cold press.
Yeah, tell me how it is and how you can lift on it.
Okay.
This last order I put in, I ordered two things I haven't ordered before. One was from Golden Paints that makes a lift medium, which is like a sizing that you put on your paper and allow it to dry, and then you can start painting. And it's supposed to be able to, you're supposed to be able to lift your pigment more easily, as I can on the indigo, because that has a lot of sizing on it. I had inherited a, a lot of Arches paper, and Arches doesn't lift as easily anymore as it used to. So I'm going to try it on there and see what goes on, because I hate to waste good paper, because Arches is made well. The fact this is so old, it has DA Arches, de Arches, or D Arches, D apostrophe Arches. They don't put the D on anymore. So it goes back a good, 15 to 16, 17 years. And I inherited this from a lady, a student of mine for the last 40 some years, and she passed away. And in the will was I got all of her artwork or her art materials and books, which was very nice of her. But anyways, and the second thing I ordered was Cision watercolor paper. It only comes in 140 pound, but I thought it's got, I think, 5 sheets in it or something that I wanted to try. It's handmade paper. It's SHIZEN paper. And I thought, well, I'll experiment with that and see what comes of it. But it's something I like to, mess around with certain things if I can occasionally, if I have time.
Okay, Dale, I'm ready.
Okay. Coming back up. Okay, good. All right. You could be a little bit more random with this pattern in here. You have a little bit of a straight line going on, but the rest of it's fine.
Okay.
Janet, I'd like to come to you so that I can see where you're at this point. All right. Okay, good. All right, I'm going to start in again then. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into the sky so that I get that blue that I'm looking for. But the first thing I want to do is I did go across the little air vent cupola thing up here, and I'm going to lift a little bit of that, and I'm going to paint around it. It's not all that important that it has to be totally white, but I'm going to take my 3/4 inch pointed oval here from Rosemary, and I'm going to go back. I'm going to grab the manganese blue here and a little bit of the ultramarine blue. That was too much. There we go. And I'm going to use a fair amount of water, and I'm going to do this fairly quick. I'm going to tip it up towards me a little bit so I can see it. And I am going to start off painting in the sky up here. Then I'm going to take a lot of water on my brush. I put more water on. And I just put more water on again. And as it goes off to the right, it really lessens in color and intensity. So I'm lessening it as it goes across the paper to the right-hand side. And I'm going to take a little bit more of the manganese. I'm going to add it in down here a little bit, painting around the barn still. I'm going to add a little bit of raw sienna to that again. Not much, but I do want it to keep that grayed down look that's back here. And straighten out my line above the barn here. Okay, Now, what I'm going to do at this point is we have in the background here, I put a small mass of trees way in the background right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the manganese or the raw sienna mixed in with the blue so it automatically grays down. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put in these trees in the background very simply. Nothing of any great importance, but I felt it needed a tree line back there just to help the eye stop and not just rumble into the sky. So I'm continuing that on the other side of the barn over here. Bring it up just a little bit. Nothing of great importance, but I think it needs to be there. Okay, the next thing would be the shadow in the foreground. Now, we have the light is hitting in here, which I'm going to darken that up, but I feel that the cast shadow that's inside the fenced area, a little bit over here, not too much, but especially right in this area here, needs to be addressed with basically the same color as the sky. And I'm going to add a little bit more manganese to it because that snow is going to be cooler up nearest us. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tone right over what I put in here and allowing the cast shadows to come out. There's a little bit of shadow in here. And I'm kind of doing this to where it is addressing what I'm seeing in the photograph. So I'm trying to stay true to that at this point, allowing some of these cast shadows to come inside here a little bit. I'm going to tone down this very lightly back here with a lot of water and then run back into the shadow here. And I want to bring out kind of broken shadow as we come across here. Put this in the shadow so that we start seeing those shadows being a little bit more dominant. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to shadow in the lower right-hand corner of the painting and connect it back like so. So we're seeing a little bit of light happening in here because I don't want a light corner back here because it's too light, because the eye will be attracted to the light as opposed to something that's a little bit darker and that's in shadow. I'm going to use
So are you using manganese blue or ultramarine blue for the shadow?
manganese blue.
And just straight or with a little bit of the raw?
Just straight.
Okay.
Now, the other thing that I want to do is I want to address underneath the barn here, that dark area. So I'm taking the ultramarine blue, mixing it right in with what I had in the manganese, and I'm taking the brown matter and making a violet color and take a little bit of that raw sienna that will slightly gray it. And I'm going to dry the brush off just a little bit. And I'm going to go underneath the barn here. And as I get down into where the grasses come up and meet that dark, and I'll probably go over it once again because it's going to dry lighter. I want to show those grasses kind of going up into that darkness there. So you're showing the roughness of that. And it comes around the corner. We got a little bit more happening here.
So what colors did you use to make that really dark?
I used the ultramarine blue and the brown matter.
Okay.
And I added just a little bit of raw sienna to slightly gray it.
Okay.
Because it's not going to be very intense for back there. But it's going to be dark and semi-colorful. Now, I'm going to take a dry brush here and soften some of it as it comes out. It's a little bit of negative painting there. And I want to dry brush this in here like so. And I'm trying to make this to where it has a varied edge, a little bit of rhythm in it, so that it doesn't look like it's straight going across, because we got all these darks that are going up in there. I'll probably darken it again, but this gives us the feeling of what's there, of the dark coming into the grasses.
What color is that? Is that the ultramarine?
Ultramarine with the brown matter. So
Okay.
it's making a violet, and I grade it slightly with the raw sienna that I already had on the board. Now, this is fairly dry over here already, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the burnt sienna and the raw sienna, different variations of it, and I am going to take this burnt sienna up closer to where we're at here, and I'm going to dry brush it right in to what's over here. So I'm dragging the brush on its side right up into the building there a little bit, then going back and adding a little bit of raw sienna. It should be dry enough, and I'm still seeing what's underneath it. And I'm putting different variations of those colors in on that so that we can see what's going on. And I'm going to take that right up into the back over here where there was more snow and so forth that we don't need to worry about. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the toothbrush with a little bit of water on it, and I'm going to spray it right on here so some of it will dissipate and soften. I'm going to take a paper towel and control it just a little bit here and there. And then I'm coming into, we need a little bit more back here. So I'm going to add some more color back in here as it comes up on top of the hill up there. I'm not worried about these grasses down here at this point, but I am going to take this same color I mixed up with the ultramarine and the brown matter, and I'm going to take that, mix it in a little bit more raw sienna, and I'm going to get a kind of a bluish gray. And I'm going to start by adding the element of the fence post and making it very casual, not trying to spell out too much. You noticed I took out that metal fence. Taking a little bit darker paint and adding it to this. And I want the fence to look rickety, casual. It's an old fence. Let's make it look old. And allowing the grass to go up through it a little bit. We can always lift out things later, but I want some of these things to not so look so perfect. So that's where I'll stop at this
That'll
point.
be easy for me. None of my stuff looks perfect.
So I took the manganese blue with just a touch of the ultramarine blue, and I worked very wet in the sky so that, again, no stop and start. I used the bigger brush with a lot of water, and I made the sky a little bit bluer over here, and I came over here and adding water as I went to lessen the color, and made this lighter over here, add a little bit of raw sienna to this here and here. And I added a grayed down version of the raw sienna with the blue, which came out a little bit on the green side, which is fine, to the tree line that's in the back. Then I came forward and I added the raw sienna, burnt sienna mixtures in with the grasses in here. I'll spatter a little bit more later. And then came down here and added the blue, which I'm going to add more to it. And then I went back in and added a little bit of burnt sienna to this up in here and painted the ultramarine blue and the brown matter that was slightly grayed down with the raw sienna underneath there, underneath the barn here. And I will go back into that later to make it look more correct.
So the snow, the shadow of the snow is
Is-
manganese?
With manganese, yes.
Okay.
And I will modify that and add more value to it so that it has a tendency of having a more form, but later on. Because there's a lot more work to do with the grasses and so forth in the barn, but everything is almost basically situated. The next big thing would be to put more work into the barn so I can relate the barn back to everything else. Because the cast shadows on the barn would be one of the last things I address when I put the trees in.
That fence is, what colors?
It's the ultramarine blue with the brown matter, and it's grayed down with a little bit of the raw sienna, so that it is something that will look older and grayed out. So it's kind of a brownish gray, which I have parts of it that are going to get darker. And what right now I was lifting out some of the areas of the fence post that are receiving a little bit of light. Minor thing, but you have to wait to do this. It's a little bit of what is receiving some of the light, but usually not too much. And I'm going to lift out the posts that are underneath the barn here also. Because they are on the light side, of course. So just so I don't lose them.
Can you hold your picture up closer to the camera for a minute,
Yeah.
please? Okay, thanks.
Yep. I've got light coming in through the window here, so I have to adjust my shadow maker.
right, take a look, Dale. Tell me what I'm missing. Right there?
You're fine. We
Oh.
only need the cows.
Okay. Okay.
No,
I
you-
got some out back. I could, I could put it in.
You'll tell Deborah I sent her an email.
Deborah merely sent you an email.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
Again, did you use for the little tree line?
I was using the raw sienna with a little bit of the blue, and it came out a little bit on the green side. I'm going to have to do something with that because it's out of sequence with a number of things. So
You want,
probably add some more burnt sienna to it later.
but you want more to the brownish.
Yeah, make it a little bit browner. It looks like springtime is creeping in from the north.
So Dale,
Yeah,
is there something else I should do to this now while I'm waiting for it to dry?
let me come down and see what you got. You could add a little bit more intensity to the blue here on in the foreground
Okay,
with the manganese,
okay.
and not equally, but mostly
Randomly, yeah, yeah.
mostly right in here in this area
Okay,
because I will be softening parts of those cast shadows.
you know, my manganese on mine looks more turquoise than yours does. I don't know why that is.
It could be your screen,
Oh, okay.
um, the way that it's picking up on mine to yours, because none of these things are the same, unfortunately. They're not calibrated, uh, which is always bothersome to me and Mary Lee. But some of those things, this does look a little bit more turquoise here also than
Okay.
what, to my eye, to what it looks like on the screen.
Yeah, the screen looks much bluer.
Much bluer, yeah.
Yeah, that's all right. I'm good with it. Let
That's
it dry.
one of the problems of working with the computer is that you're not always getting proper color or even value. So sometimes I have to tell you to get a little bit darker or go a little bit more this way or that way with the color, and assume that it's going to be correct.
It's art, not science. It's all right if it's a little different.
Yeah. Yeah, because you can be off on the color as long as your value, intensity, and temperature is correct. And still have it look fine.
Okay.
All right, that's coming out fine. Good. And your barn looks fine being more straight on than that angled. So there's
Yeah.
nothing to worry about.
Okay.
You reading the perspective book?
I haven't lately, but I'll take a gander at it now.
Look under the 2-point perspective, and the
Okay.
eye level line is always the first thing that you establish, so that you're getting where you're. In other words, when this person took the picture here, their eye level line was down right about here. So they were going downhill, so they're seeing up underneath this. So any horizontal line that's above the eye level line will go down to one vanishing point or the other. If it's down below, it's going to go back, it's going to go up to the vanishing point. So it's something that, let me see if I can draw this out for you. Get a piece of paper. I'll do this fairly quick so that you can see what I'm talking about. Use a pencil.
Here, I have a pencil.
Yeah,
She's got a pencil.
could you hand it over to me?
Yeah, I'm trying.
Just a quick perspective lesson. If you have an eye level line that's down low like this, and the vanishing points are somewhere out here, and you have your vertical up here, which is the vertical of the barn right here, the frontmost vertical that's closest to us. The horizontals will go down to the eye level or to the vanishing point right
No,
and left,
it is-
like so,
Yeah.
like this. And then you have the other vertical in the back here and the other vertical right here. Now, as the roof it goes up, if you want to find the center of that peak up here, you diagonal off this side here and you run a vertical line up and you find your angle like so.
Hmm.
And then this gives you the measurement or the angle going down to the vanishing point down here, like so. And then to find this angle here without going through a lot of construction, if this here will angle more than this one does. So you put your pencil up on your screen and find the angle and bring it over, and this will give you your angle here. This angle is less dramatic than this one here. And actually, these will go to a third vanishing point that's way up here. So that's how you get that. So if I had another building that was in the foreground here, let's just say a little box, your horizontal lines would go up to that, like so.
Oh, yeah.
And you find your left and right side, and you take the left side back to the right and the right side back to the left, and you end up with the top of the box right here. This would be the right side, and this would be the left side. So you're seeing the barn somewhat like this. And if you have, after you get the straight line, let's say that the barn is got a bad roof, you would then angle this down a little bit and show that the barn is starting to sink.
Uh-huh.
Okay?
Yep.
That's an extra 50 cents.
When I'm out on the golf course and I help one of my friends who's golfing with me improve a swing of or whatever, I tell her that'll be 20, and she hits a perfect shot. I tell her that's $25.
Oh, yeah, exactly. That's extra money for hitting a better shot.
Yeah. I do have a question
Yeah.
the, with the brush underneath here. Yours looks more doesn't have as many gaps. Should I
Uh,
fill that
Down here or over here?
like right underneath the holes in the barn?
Yeah, right up in here.
Yes. Should
Okay.
I fill that in more with a different color or?
I added the burnt sienna to it here and there, and then I add a little bit of water to kind of disperse it to give it so it's not so hard edged up there because it's further away from us.
Right.
But I added with the toothbrush, I just added water to that.
So is it too late to, since it's pretty much dry now, so I can't add.
If it's dry, what you could do is add water to it and lift, which is what I'm going to do next.
Oh, okay.
But you're doing fine. That's good. Anybody else have something to show me?
Dale, I want to show you, I'm still working on the fence, but
Okay. All right. So far, so good. We're going to kind of play with the grasses out in front later, but
okay,
we're going to add a little bit more warmth to that. But you're fine.
okay.
Janet, how are you doing? It's like playing seance with you today. Okay, good. You'll be adding a few more grasses up front, but you're fine right now.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Why is it amazing?
Because I have more steps written down to do, so
Okay.
that's cool.
Wait till the rivers, rapids, and waterfalls.
Right, so maybe I won't do those additional steps. Maybe I'll just stop now.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm gonna have to miss your workshops this summer, Dale.
Oh, doesn't work with your schedule, huh?
No, because I'm gonna be there the middle of August, maybe to the middle of September, and you're either too early or too late.
Yeah.
Unless you have something someplace else in Wisconsin.
Um, no, because I'm in Iowa before that at the end or beginning of May.
No. How much do you charge for individual lessons?
To make it worthwhile, you'd have to have 3 to 4 people with you.
Okay,
And I usually charge $100 per person on private lesson for the 3 hours. It's not 2.5, it's 3 hours. Because I'm doing one in southern Wisconsin via Zoom sometime in March.
Well, I'm ready.
Okay, let's see what you got.
And my fence looks huge.
No, my fence is kind of on the big side too. You know, it's up front. It's got to be a little bit bigger, but you're fine. That's good. You're getting a
Yeah, I
little,
gotta bring,
you're getting a little bit dark back here with the grasses.
okay,
It's kind of large. Spray a little bit of water on it and lift it.
okay.
And did I see yours, Judy? I forgot.
Yeah, you did.
Okay. And Deborah, I saw, and Elsie, I saw, Janet, I saw, and I saw Ivy's. Okay. All right, we're ready to start again. All right. There is a larger tree back here that I'm using that's in the photograph. It's very light and airy looking. And it is I'm going to be using the raw sienna with that and the burnt sienna. And a little bit of the manganese blue to slightly gray it. And I'm going to dry the brush off quite a bit. And I'm going to dry brush this in a downward fashion and angled, a little bit more water. This just acts as a backdrop back there. I'll add a little bit of trunk and branch later on. But this is going to remain light and airy. It's not something that's particularly heavy. And what I'm going to do with that same mixture is I'm going to go into the background trees and paint over the green that I had back there. For the simple fact I don't want the green. Very quickly, dry brushing the tops. That's better. And I'm going to do the same thing over here on the left side very quickly. Now, I'm going to take the 1/2-inch pointed oval here, and I'm going to address the roof and the body of this, and then come down and address the snow. So I'm going to go up to the roof, and we have some manganese up there, and it's much lighter over here. I'm not going to do too much over here. This is going to remain pretty much as we see it, maybe perhaps with a light warm wash on it, which will bring it forward, but I don't want it coming forward too much. And I worry about the cast shadows being cast on it later. So I'm going to take this mixture here, very, very light with a lot of water, and I'm going to put in a very light, quick value on this, varying the color here and there so that it's not just a flat value. I'm going to warm it up a slight bit as it comes out of the shadow area.
It looks green, but I don't think it is.
I know it's coming up green. It actually has a tinge of the green in it. And I'm going to paint the cupola, if you want to call it that, the shadow side of this, and underneath. And it has a little bit more raw sienna in it. So I'm hitting that with some raw sienna up there. And I gave the roof a little bit different look to it than what's in the photograph. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take
What is it? What is that color you're using on the roof?
Manganese.
Uh-uh.
I'm going to take a little bit of the manganese here, and I'm going to sprinkle it in on the roof very carefully, and then I'm going to bring it over to the right-hand side a little bit. Then I'm going to add a little bit of the raw sienna, really watered down a lot. So we're going very light value on this over here because I really don't want too much of the white of the paper showing. So it's going to have a little bit more. Once I get the cast shadows on there, it'll have a better relationship. Now, I'm going to have the burnt sienna very light. So it has a lot of water in it. And I'm going to start to give this barn that look of where the paint's falling off. And I'm going to add a little bit of raw sienna to that, but I want to add a little bit more burnt sienna to it. And I'm going to dry brush that on so that we end up with a little bit of a scattered look to it, a rougher look. I'm going to add a little bit of raw sienna to it as it comes across here, right through the trees, like so. And then I'm going to hit it with the toothbrush with the burnt sienna. Kind of right down the middle here. So it ends up with that spattered look a little bit. And then a little bit more burnt sienna in certain areas on the barn here that require a little bit of the feeling of the lath work. Again, not paying any attention to the cast shadows. Because that goes on top. It's like when you paint a portrait with a person with glasses, you paint the person first and then you paint the glasses on the person. You don't paint the glasses with the person. And then I'm going to create that dark that is underneath the eaves there, or at the end of the eaves. So I'm going to pull this up just a little bit so I can see it. So I'm using the ultramarine blue, a little bit of the brown madder, and some burnt sienna with a lot of water. And I'm doing some fine line with the number 5 brush. Add a little bit more burnt sienna to it. Like so. Leave that dry for a minute. Go to the side of the building that's in shadow. And I'm going to paint that in with the manganese and a little bit of the burnt sienna. And it gets a little bit lighter as it goes down towards the ground because it's picking up the reflection of the snow. And I'm still going to go back into the building here with some dry brushing on the side of the brush. So I dry it off on the paper towel, and I want to get some of that feeling of the lath where it's losing the paint. Not worried about the windows. Got a little bit of broken lath down here, like so. And what I'm going to do next, instead of doing the grasses, I'm going to make the underneath part of the barn darker. So I take some more brown madder, ultramarine blue, and the burnt sienna. Want a fairly dark area. I'm not going to paint these all the same value, but I do want the ones that are closest to us to be a little bit darker. Not completely, I'm darkening actually up towards the top where it's touching the building and not the grasses. It'd be too much contrast. So I'm just dabbing it in there. And I will show you that up closer. And as I go down, I'm going to water it down quite a bit. Like I say, I don't want this to be as dark as it is over here. As I get way back there, quite a bit less. And while this is dried almost for me, I'm going to go in right underneath the eave. And I'm going to put this in so that that shows up and stays on the soft side. It's a little damp right there, which is fine. And then I'm going to paint a little bit of this up in here that's a little bit darker. So I'm jumping around, trying to get things in timing with everything else. And I painted around the doorway here, which has got a little bit more reflection. So now I'm going to go to the barn that's in the back here. And I'm going to paint that in the shadow side of the barn. And the body of the barn, I'm going to paint on the red side. Something that's a little bit different, leaving the roof alone for right now. Now, I'm going to dress the shadow in the foreground. And I'm going to do a little bit with the grasses in the foreground. So what I have to do here is I need to soften with my brush here with a little bit of water some of these hard edges on the snow, because I don't want them to attract the attention too much. And I will darken up some of it, but out here we want to try to create a little bit of softness so it doesn't attract the eye. So a sharp edge will attract the eye to a great extent, and I don't want that to happen. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit more blue. So I'm taking the ultramarine blue and the manganese blue and a touch of the raw sienna, so it's slightly grayed down. And I'm going to add some color into this here, this shadow that's in the lower right-hand side. A little bit in here and some more right in here. And what I'm going to do also is I'm going to take that same color and I'm going to put that up on the roof here just a little bit. And I'll worry, like I said, I'll worry about the shadows later. And I want to add a little bit more darkness to the side of the building here that's in shadow. So I'm going to take some of that manganese blue again, some ultramarine blue, and a little bit of the raw sienna to slightly gray it, because things are always grayer in the shadow area. Add a little bit more blue to it. This is still somewhat wet, but that's all right. And I'm going to bring that right down into this area, into the grass, because it's casting somewhat of a shadow along through here. And then I'm going to leave it alone. So what I did is I added this tree back here. I took the tree line and I made it a little bit more warmer, and it's also grayer. And then I added the color to the roof leaving this pretty light over here, almost white of the paper. And then I started adding in body of color here, which I will detail later, but I added the little bit of burnt sienna, raw sienna, dry brushing it across, trying to get a little bit of feel for the lath in the building. I added more dark underneath the building here and here and here, and a little bit over there, but not too much. Then I came in and softened the shadows in the foreground, and that's it. I did add a little bit more blue into the roof of the barn. Let me see if I can get rid of that light coming through the window again. I am going to go change my water.
Dale, before you go, when you
Yeah.
did the trees over here, you just used your raw and sienna and burnt sienna?
Over here? Yes.
Yeah.
And I was very dry on it, so when I dragged the brush down, I had a lot of air showing through for the branches of the tree.
Okay, thanks.
Dale, what color on those trees again on the left-hand side?
Over here,
Yeah,
that was the raw sienna and a little bit of burnt sienna.
okay.
Not too much though. Be right back. Don't go away. Okay. And I gotta take a picture of this. Any more questions?
Yeah, so after you softened the edges on the snow, the cast shadow,
Yeah,
went in with a more of a manganese to make it a little bit darker.
right in here, yes. Just right here. I did a little bit over here and a touch there, but not too much. In the monitor really looks blue. In here, I would say it's about 70% of what's here. And I'm still going to modify it again and softening things. But I won't do that until the end, till I get the trees in and some other things, details and stuff, so I can see a comparison.
So Dale,
Yeah,
I made my roof too dark. The values are too close. Is there some way to fix that later?
let's see what you got. Let me get up there. Where'd you go?
Can you see it? I think let me get my window here. It's glaring.
Yours too, huh?
Yep. Yep. Facing south.
Yeah. No, I think you're all right.
Okay. I'll just be careful not to put too much on it later.
Yeah. I added a little bit more grayed down blue over here,
Okay.
but that will be disguised when I put the cast shadows on. But so far, so good. Anybody else have something to show me?
Yeah, show me where I need to go. Next.
Tanuskis. Let's see. You could make the shadow side of the barn over here darker. And I was using the ultramarine and the manganese and grayed down with a little bit of raw sienna. Then I put this dark overhang in after the fact when it was still a little damp.
Okay,
That's where you want to be right there.
would say ultramarine, manganese, and
A little
what?
bit of raw sienna to gray it. It's cool, but anything in the shadow is always cool and grayed down. You have that look on your face, Sydney.
I'm gonna have to paint this again on my Fabriano paper because I can't lift. I'd have the hardest time lifting on the paper that you use. Mine just turns to mush.
I don't
Or
have problem lifting on the indigo.
yeah,
So when you're lifting, do you rinse the brush out and then squeeze all the water out and then lift? I don't do it with a wet brush, just a clean damp brush.
maybe that's it.
Try
But
that.
a lot of my paint isn't lifting at all.
I'll be darned.
I have the same problem and I do it with my brushes, good brushes and wet and squeezed out and I hate it.
Are you using the indigo paper, Elsa?
Well, no, I'm using Fabriano.
Okay, well, the Fabriano and acts differently. Every paper you use will react differently to lifting, absorbing the paint, allowing the paint to float, what the paint looks like when it's dried. Um, you'll get a large area of opinion from artist to artist on what their favorite paper is.
Yeah, I love the Fabriano. I have no problem with that.
That's interesting.
I will not buy arches anymore, but I've got like 5 pads I got to go through first.
Yeah, well, I'm going to experiment with the lift aid on the arches to see what will happen with it.
Yeah, I think I'll get some of that.
Well, let me try it first and see what's. It's supposed to come in next week.
But it's okay. I don't mind wasting a little paper.
Okay, oh, Dale.
All right, that's coming along nice. You need a little bit of the grasses coming over here and up the hill here. Show that it goes up the hill. And it's just basically light washes of that raw sienna gray down a slight bit. There's still some grasses I want to put in between here, but I want to put the trees in first because I don't like this blank spot right there. That's between the fence rails.
Raw sienna and what the grade down?
Just a little bit of the I would say a little bit of the manganese. I mean a slight touch of it.
Yeah, you're slated.
Janet, how are you doing?
Okay.
Can I
It's
see can I see what you're doing?
mm. That's another.
Let him see.
How about how am I doing?
I want to see what you're doing. The question of how you're doing is a phone conversation. That's coming along fine. You could bring your rails all the way to the edge of the paper a little bit more. You kind of stop them in midair.
Oh, I didn't want to define everything, but okay.
All right.
Okay.
Nice
Thank
try,
you.
though.
What?
Nice try trying to get rid of part of your fence.
The cow busted through it.
Those must have been Deborah's cows.
Right. Instead of the dog eating my homework, the cow busted through my
I
fence.
see. Sydney, did I see yours?
No,
All right, that's coming along all right. Okay.
I'm not happy with it. I'll do it over again on my Fabriano.
All right. Well, call this practice, so you're not starting from scratch.
Absolutely. Well, and I've got a lot of marks in my sky from it's the paper.
Yeah.
Is
The, the paper can be the key to the whole thing sometimes.
Yeah, this paper was really off kilter for edges. It was hard to tape down. And then
yeah.
I've got like hairlines in it, as if, like you would a brush hair or your hair.
Yeah, that's the pressing of the paper. I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
There's two sides to the indigo paper, and I always mark the side that I want to paint on that I don't grab it and use the other side by accident.
Oh, that on the indigo, to me, it's really obvious which is the wrong side.
Yes, correct.
Because it looks like hash marks all over.
Yes, it does. I mean, you have on the arches paper, you have the correct side is where you could read arches.
Yeah.
If it doesn't read arches, they say the other side is not as good as the other side. Well, I'm finding that neither side is what I really am looking for. Okay, are we ready to start again, or did I miss somebody?
Yeah, I'll show you mine.
Oh, okay. All right, good. That's coming along fine. All right, let's get started again. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take and spatter the grasses up in here with water just a little bit to give it a little bit of character to it, and then lift. That's what I'm looking for, to get that texture going in underneath the barn just a little bit. And a little bit out front. And I can add back to this when I need to. Whoop. And a little bit in the background with the trees. Minor thing. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to look at is the windows on the barn. Little bit of detail on the posts, but not too much because it's kind of far away. So I'm taking the ultramarine blue and the raw sienna. And again, I'm going to very quickly put in some of the windows and some of the detail to some of the openings of the barn. I'm also going to add a little bit of extra value here alongside the shadow side of the barn, because as we turn over, that's got to be a little bit darker to make the turn faster and a little bit more complete looking. And I'm not overdoing the openings of the barn too much, for the simple fact that they're not that prominent, unless you want to make them more prominent, but I really don't care to do that. I'm going to take a little bit of that mixture, and I'm going to use the cast shadow. I'm increasing the cast shadow underneath the eaves on the barn just to pull it out a little bit more. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of the raw sienna, and I want to dry brush the grasses in a little bit more prominent back in here. And I'm just adding small dabs of color, nothing too large. Whoops. And dry brushing up into here a little bit more. And coming out front of the building and adding some more intensity out there. And I'm going to add a few little things in here before I get to the trees. And I want to add a little bit more raw sienna in with the ones out front here. Because they're closer, they're going to be a little bit warmer. I'm going to add a little bit of raw burnt sienna to some of these, so they're not all the same. Remember, I'm always looking for variety of temperature or color or intensity. But not drastic. Just minor, small changes here and there. And I'm going to add a little bit of some of these out here in the fenced area. so that it doesn't look like they're disconnected. And then some right in here. You can get carried away with dry grasses sometimes by putting too much in. I just want to give them a little bit of enhancement. Add a few more so that it starts coming a little bit more alive in the foreground. And connect that shadow to the grasses a little bit better than what it was. Then I'll start with the trees. Move this over just a slight bit here. And I'm going to start with the trees that are off to the right, or I mean to the left, to start with. So I'm going to take some burnt sienna and a little bit of the ultramarine blue. And I am going to very carefully start putting in the trees. And every 3 or 4 brush strokes on the tree, I am actually changing the color or value or temperature so that they're not the same color, temperature, value going all the way up.
Are you using a number 5 brush?
Yeah, I'm using a number 5 brush, my next to smallest brush. I'll be using the rigger also. But I keep on remixing the color just so that there's a little bit of variety in what I'm doing. I'm starting off with the larger trees and going to the smaller trees. And I'm going to tip this up a little bit so I can see. And I'm not making the trees too prominent on the left-hand side for the simple fact that I don't want them drawing too much attention. A little bit darker down towards the bases of the trees. And as I travel across the painting, I'm going to add a little bit of texture into the barn again. And I'm going to look at some of the lath work on here. So I can add a little bit of detail. And this will start bringing the painting together a little bit faster. So I'm trying to use a dry brush on this so that it doesn't grab too much attention. And I'm not allowing it to connect all the way across. I'm kind of jumping around on the barn. And the cast shadows on the barn will be later. Now I'm going to go to this tree here, which will be darker, a little bit heavier on the paint because it is closest to us, or closer than these back here. And again, I'm still alternating the color, temperature, and value on these. So it's not the same color, same value, same intensity all the way up. It's a little bit different. And I'm going to warm it up as we go up because it's receiving more light up there. The finer branches I'll put in after I get these done up here. But I don't want to try to do some fine branches with this size brush. But I'm allowing the branches to move in one direction or the other You don't want to make them look like rubber. So they jut around. And doing a dry brush on this textured paper does help with this sort of thing here so that the trees don't look solid everywhere. Some of the trees are going to have a little bit more light on them. I'm going to go and use the rigger and get some finer handling of the branches up in here to help fill the space. Some of them are going to be very light and almost not noticeable, where others will be a little bit heavier. Some of these saplings in here that I'm putting in now, overlapping the barn, I didn't draw in, but I'm using the brush to put them in at this point. And the branches are usually up on the tree a little bit warmer up towards the top because that's the newer part of the growth of the tree. The old growth is really towards the trunk. So I will be putting in a lot of these branches up here. And there's a lot more branches on the photograph than what I'm putting in, but some people would try to put them all in. I would not advise it at this point because it's going to get too busy and take away from the actual barn itself. But I am going to put in a couple other trees back here that were not drawn in. I was undecided whether I wanted to use them or not, but now I'm going to use them. And I'm going to have them lean in a little bit. And some smaller saplings and branches coming off of these. This will help fill this space over here very casually, but not fill it up. I want it a little bit on the airy side. Take a little bit of the manganese blue, add that in there for contrast of temperature. And I'm going to work around the painting a little bit here and there at this time. And add a little bit more value changes on the grasses down front here. So I'm adding final touches to the barn before I do any cast shadows, because that would be last. So I'm using pure burnt sienna at this point. Bringing those colors up a little bit warmer in the foreground, and then we'll get to the fence, finishing touches on that. So I'm going to add some darkness to it here and here. Small accents, not anything huge. Add a little bit more value to some of the trees as it dries. Nothing back here on the fence because I just want that to kind of fade off. But I do want to enhance this fence post here. And add a few saplings along the fence line. And then take the toothbrush with pure burnt sienna up in here. Then I can address the cast shadow on the barn. So I'm going to clean off the palette for that so I don't get that all messed up. And the cast shadows are a bluish brown in here. So I'm going to take the ultramarine blue and a little bit of what I had up in here, and so it grays down. And I am going to start with the body of the building here. And these cast shadows are not blue, but they got quite a bit of and some of these are from outside sources that are way over here. So I have to show that these cast shadows come running through here like this. And there's quite a few of them. So you're going to have to simplify it just a little bit. I don't have any cast shadows off over here. Now, got to go up on the roof. And I have add a little manganese to that simply because the roof is a little bit different temperature up here in color. And you have a little bit more work up in here because you got the branches to the trees showing up. Ooh, what was that? And I kind of closed this up a little bit too much over here. So I'm going to pull out just a little bit. Don't want to overdo it. And a little bit more work on the cupola up here. And I'm going to use a little bit of gouache on the cupola because I lost the color or the value up there. So you can use a little bit of gouache. I don't think I want to put too much more in on the roof itself, except I need to define the sides of the cast shadow on the side of the barn here a little bit more. But not equally everywhere. Otherwise it gets carried away. So let's see where we're at by taking the tape off. Bless you.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Sometimes this paper can be a little crazy with pulling up the tape. That's why I never tape it down the night before, because it's a very soft paper. Oop, I tore up a little bit there. The only thing I would actually play with at this point, which would take too much time, is the cast shadow on the barn. Just to modify it a slight bit, but the essence of it is there. That's where we'll end this up. So if anybody wants to take a picture, I'll hold it up like this. But I put a little bit more detail in on the barn, but not too much.
How did you make those cast shadows on the barn?
I used the ultramarine blue, the warmer blue. With a little bit of raw sienna, slightly gray it. But I didn't want it blue, because then it would be out of order with the rest of the painting.
Okay.
I mean, there's always something else you can do with the painting, but this is where your time slows down. I could spend an hour on this with minimal touching the paper with the paint, but observing what I need to fix. And taking a look at things. The trees could maybe be a little bit darker here and there. The cast shadows do need to be altered a slight bit. They need to be more blurred up here. But getting down the essence of what the painting is and should be is still there. I would not do anything with these trees over here, just probably these two trees and a couple of the saplings in between. I would probably go in and soften a little bit, and I would darken some of the other ones. But that's where
Okay.
we ended up.
I have a question.
Yes.
I think on my, when I put my snow in, I kind of messed it up. So how can I correct that?
If you feel you need to go in and use whitewash with color and glaze across it with a lot of water in it, you can
Yeah.
do that. So in other words, if I wanted to, let me show you, if I wanted to modify something but not make a big statement, I would take the whitewash and I would add a little bit of the ultramarine blue to it. Then take a lot of water so it becomes like a milky consistency. And I can add in small passages of that color, and it would allow to show through what's underneath it, but soften everything as I went. So even doing what I'm doing here is helping out the cast shadows. Now, if I want to go along and soften this down here,
Yeah.
add a lot of water to this, a little bit of manganese, and a lot more water, and a little bit of white. So I have a lot of water, and I can go along and I can softly put in, and as I glaze across this, it's allowing the pigment underneath to show through. It's almost like stained glass windows. Allow some of the light to come through and other not to. So I would go along and I would kind of fool around with small passages, nothing big, but I could probably come up here into the roof and soften a few of these up in here to where they look like they're more broken up, but yet it still looks like it's part of the painting, part of the building. But there's a number of ways you can use gouache.
You ever use other colored gouaches with your watercolor paintings? Your
No.
transparent watercolor?
No, you don't need to, for the simple fact that when I was teaching the college course, to cut down on costs, we would use the watercolor and then white gouache. Adding the white gouache to it made it opaque as the gouache colors are. But what happens with the gouache colors, they're actually less intense than.
Really? 'Cause I think they're more intense.
No, they're actually not, because I can make this more intense or less intense with the gouache.
Huh.
Where you're limited with the gouache, and plus we didn't want the students buying another set of paints because of the cost of things. But you can manipulate it with the watercolor and the gouache a little bit better than you can just with the gouache and the white. And I'm kind of toning this down up on the roof a little bit. Or I can use it thick and cover everything that's underneath it and it won't show. Such as I can come in here and add small passages that will not show anything underneath it. But if I added more water to it, I'd be glazing across it and you could still see what's underneath it.
Okay, thank you very much.
So this is where we'll kind of keep it at this point without going crazy with certain things. But I can go in here and add certain little things in here and so forth to detail. That's over here, it's kind of unimportant. So there's where we end up.
Unimportant, but you'll probably fiddle with it for another hour, right? That
Uh,
air.
Probably when the sun goes down and I want to relax, I will continue on with it.
Thank you, Dale.
You're
Have a
welcome.
great week,
Brenda.
everybody.
Yeah, thanks, Dale.
Remember, this is the
Yeah.
last session of this session.
All
Yep.
right.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
Dale.
much.
All right.
Bye.
You have a good
Thanks,
weekend.
Neil. Merrily, thanks.
Yeah.
We'll see you again soon.
Yep, I'm already registered.
Last one that signs up brings the donuts.
Donuts. No, I
Thank
want
you.
donuts.
All right. You're welcome. Somebody has to bring the donuts.
Bye-bye.
Dale.
All right. Everybody take care. Don't behave, Cindy.
Okay, what?
Don't behave.
Yeah, if I behave, I don't have any fun. Thank you.
All
Bye-bye.
right, you're welcome. Bye-bye.